This is a tutorial on how to use a software, not a software, a browser program called Pixlr, which actually you guys recommended to me, so you might already know how to use this. I'm going to show you really basic, because the objective here is to take the image of our Tree of Life sculpture, and we're going to open it up in Pixlr, and we're going to add color to it. Instead of glazing, we're going to be doing this. So the first thing you want to do is just type Pixlr, Pixlr.com into your URL, and it'll take you there. Mr. Landry recommended that I use Pixlr E. So go ahead and click on that, and you can see I've already kind of started some, but if you haven't started some, you're going to want to take a really nice photo straight on of your sculpture, the full piece, and I would put it on a background that's maybe dark. If possible, and have really good lighting on it. You don't want it to be really dark and low resolution image. So once you take that photo, put it on your desktop or put it somewhere where you can find it, and then you go to open image, and this is my desktop right here. I'm going to scroll through and I'm going to look for my photo, click on the photo, open, and I would choose web because it's just a small image. We don't need it to be too high. And it might download sideways. If it does, you can go up to image and rotate image. I'm going to rotate it to the left. And if I use my mouse pad right now, if I kind of push forward and back, I can zoom in and out so I can get it the right size. Now, I don't know how many of you have worked on Photoshop. Probably not that many because it is a paid program that we have at school, but it's not a lot of people have it at home unless they're professional artists because it does cost. It's a monthly fee. It's pretty expensive. But anyways, this is kind of like set up like Photoshop is set up. So you could do layers, multiple layers, and you have all these different tools. Now I'm going to teach you very basic, you guys. You can explore, you can have fun beyond what I teach you. It's totally fine, but I'm going to just teach you the basic. So the first thing I would consider doing is this is a layer that is your picture. This is your background. This is your picture. It's probably a good idea not to paint directly on your picture because if you paint on your picture and all of a sudden you decide, I don't really like that, you can erase that layer of painting and still have your background image. So to make an extra layer, you just click the plus sign and then you want to do empty. An empty layer. So now you have an empty layer, and this is the layer that you're going to be clicked on when you go in and paint. And you can even get fancy and sort of say, well, all of my reds are going to be on a red layer. And if I double click, or if I click this, I can rename it. So if I wanted this to be my red layer, then I know these are all my red colors. And if I wanted to make another layer, I would click the plus sign and empty, and then these little three dots, and then maybe this is my green layer. It's really kind of up to you. One rule of thumb with Photoshop that's probably true for this program too is if this layer is on the top, it's literally the top layer of this. So if I move my green under my red is going to be on top of my green, if that makes sense. Okay. So it just depends. You might want to just do one at a time, if that makes sense. And then you think about it like you would be painting this in real life, where you would put the first coat on and then any detail patterning you want to do on top of that. So we talked about how we're going to be creating a lot of bright colors and patterns, and I want you to stick to that. I want you to go back to your original sketch that you created and use that as a reference for your colors. If you change your mind, that is totally okay. So we're going to use the brush tool. This is the little, sorry, that's the wrong one. Color replace, brush. Yeah, we're going to use the brush tool. And this is going to give you a paintbrush. And up here, you can choose, if you click on the number here, you can choose all of these different brushes. But you can also manipulate and create your own brush. So this is going to show you the size of your brush, the softness, right, of your brush. And also, if you want your brush to be kind of dotted, you can move it to the right. And if you want it to be a solid line, you move it to the left. Or you could just pick one that you like and test it out and see if it's the right thing. And if it isn't, you go back up here and you just adjust. Okay, and then opacity has to do with how solid the color is. So if the opacity is 100, then your brush stroke is going to be really, really solid. And if you change the opacity way down, you're going to be able to see through your brush stroke. Here's a quick little shortcut. If you hold Command Z, like if I do a brush stroke, I don't like it. If I hit Command Z, it goes back a step and it erases that. Down here, you'll see that you have a history. This history tells you exactly what you did, and you can click. You can go back to whatever layer you were on or whatever you did if you want to. And I think it probably goes back, I don't know, Photoshop I think goes back 20, 40 steps. I don't know how far back this goes, but that's getting a little complicated. So I'm going to go click red because I think actually cancel that. See, I went back so many steps that I lost my layers. So if I go back to layer order, then I get them back. Okay, so the ones at the bottom are the most recent. I'm going to actually reorder this and put green on the bottom. And then I'm going to click on this and I'm going to choose, I think I wanted kind of like an olive green. So I'm going to pull this down this way and kind of search for the one I want. You can see it changing up here. And then click yes, and you see this color changes. So now I'm going to zoom in. If I hold Command plus, that helps me zoom in. I could also use my finger. And I'm going to go up to, if you want to paint a little closer, I'm going to turn my opacity up a little bit. But it's probably a good idea that you have it somewhat transparent so that you don't lose the shadows and the details on your sculpture. Now if your brush is too big, you go up to here and you just bump it down a bit. And you want to get in. Take your time with this too. This is your final, so this should be painted pretty neatly. You know, I'm going to be able to tell when you turn it in if you did it really quickly or if you spent some time on this. If you're lucky and you have a stylus, which is like a digital pen, you can use that instead of your finger. But right now I'm just using my trackpad. This is not something that would be easy to do on your phone. You're going to have to use your iPad or your Chromebook to do this. See how I'm kind of tracing the outline first? And then I can go in and kind of fill in the gaps. I'm not going to paint this whole thing on the demo. I don't want to take up your time like that, but I'm just showing you the steps. So say I paint the whole thing green. I can change colors, do whatever I want. If I want to have a bunch of different greens on that, maybe I can go in and choose a different green, and I'm still on the green layer here. And maybe I add in some darker green. Now remember, we're trying to create pattern and texture and things that are patterns that might be significant to us. So maybe you use colors that might represent whatever the person is that you're putting in your tree. Okay, so let's pretend like I'm done with all my greens, and I could keep going. You know, I could keep changing my green. I could go do like a turquoisey green. I could change the paint. Could change the paintbrush. I could make it kind of harder and smaller. And I could go in and do even more. That's too big. I think it's going to have to be like an 8. I'm going to go back, hit Command Z, and then maybe I put a zigzag over top of that. So just, you know, have fun with it. Really play around with it. So now I'm going to go to my reds, and I'm going to pick something that I like, you know, just trust your instincts. Maybe a different brush. Maybe I make it kind of spotted looking. That might be kind of fun. I still want it to be small, and now I'm going to put lines on top. Looks kind of like Christmas lights. Okay. And then I can go in and make a new layer and empty, and then maybe I layer this, I call this layer birds. So this is my birds layer. And maybe I make one of the birds kind of a green and a yellow. Change my brush, make it softer. Don't like the steps. Make it a little bigger and maybe a little more opaque. And if you have fancy things that you want to do to this, like color fades and blending and stamping and all that stuff, I'm not going to demo all that because I don't want to overwhelm you. But feel free to explore this program. This is a free version. Okay, so that's the demo I'm going to show you. I'm not going to go through and do the whole thing. Eventually I will, but not for this demo because I want you to have time to work. But how do I save my image? So don't close this before you save it or you will lose all of your work. So you want to go up to File and Save. And then we're just going to save it as a JPEG. You can make it high resolution if you want to, and I would rename it. Put your last name and put Final Tree of Life. And then you want to hit download. And this goes straight to my downloads, and then I'll probably drag it onto my desktop. And then when you turned it in for your final, you're just going to use this image and submit that. Okay, so that is the tutorial for today. You do not need to be at this step yet. If you're still working on your sculpture, that is totally fine. Just remember that you have in class today, you have Monday, we have 30 minutes class, and then you have the day of your final, which is almost 2 hours. So I highly recommend that you finish your sculpture before the day of your final, and then you use those 2 hours during your final to paint your piece and turn it in. I think that would be a good workflow for you all. All right, thanks.